beautiful minds. Welcome to Mind Over Matter, the space where high achievers get real about healing. Tonight, we are joined by Yvonne Lee-Hawkins, a powerhouse who went from corporate burnout to holistic balance. After years of leading teams, raising a family, and hitting a breaking point, she found a new way to thrive without sacrificing success. So, if you're running on fumes or pretending you're fine, Yvonne's story is your soul's wake up call. So, Yvonne, burnout is such a buzzword now, but it's real. What did burnout look and feel like for you when it hit?
Yeah, great question. I've actually had two major cases of burnout in my career. One in my early 30s, when I was kind of at the peak of my physical health. And it was surprising. It looked very different than it did the second time. So the first time, I was in the best shape of my life. I had, just been promoted to about a year before. Life was going really well. And I hit a mental block. I shared this story before, but I was getting ready for my work at my corporate role, and I opened up my sock drawer and I just couldn't choose a pair of socks to wear. That was my aha moment of something is not right. Um, it was decision fatigue. It was brain fog, even though that wasn't even a word then, but my brain was stuck in the mud. I was doing all the right things, and yeah, I had nothing left in the tank. So that was the first time around, and I got help and worked my way out of that. Ended up doing a lot of people do with burnout is changing jobs and getting some help from my medical professional and things like that. And I thought that was a done scenario. And then 10 years later, it happened again. Only this time it was different. I had physical symptoms. I gained weight. My blood pressure started to get dangerously high, and my doctor wanted to put me on medication. My vision started to regress, and I was having all kinds of physical symptoms. My body felt like it was giving out, and it was a very different set, but um, very same cause. I was overworking myself. I was, again, top in my career. I was doing really well. I was focused on taking care of everyone else, except me. And so that was my final wake up call. I did not want to go through this a third time.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So, what was the first sign you ignored in hindsight, which was a huge red flag?
Yeah, I think, when I talk to my clients, there's certain triggers, and the way that I tackle burnout and helping people recover from it is there are basically four pillars that I cover. One is the physical symptoms or the physical triggers. There's the mental triggers, emotional triggers, and then the last one, which I'll call energetic triggers. And of course, all of those work together, right? It's like the circulatory system works with the nervous system, works with your bones. You can use your words to describe them by themselves, but they're all interconnected. And so it was these small things, like in my physical health, my sleep was really disrupted. Mentally, decisions were hard. Emotionally, I wasn't feeling any emotions. I was on autopilot and I wasn't actually allowing myself to feel any emotions, whether that's sadness or anger or anything. I was just, going through the motions. And then energetically, looking back, what I recognize now is I was doing more and more work that wasn't energizing me. It was actually draining me. And so this combination of all of these factors started to build up, and that's what landed me in burnout again.
That moment of truth hits hard. So many of us normalize exhaustion until we're already empty.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very common, and I think the biggest myth that I see both in my practice and out, I saw in the corporate world is this thought of, oh, you can just push through this, or it'll get better when is like the sign. It'll get better when, this season is over, or this meeting is over, or this paper is over. The problem I think that I now realize is there is no when, you actually only have right now. You have to take care of it now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, you talk about blending holistic wellness with leadership strategy. What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, wonderful question. I'm glad you asked it. There's many things I can teach you about taking care of yourself, self-care, and all of these things. However, that doesn't really work in a professional environment if you're working in a fast-paced, high-pressure company. It's not about just, going on a spa day or getting your nails done or taking a nap. It's learning to be clear about what you're willing to do and what you're not, when you need help and when you need rest. So, one of the things, for example, that I teach my clients is if they already have a full plate and their manager, which happens to all of us, tries to put more on that plate, oh, a new escalation happened or a new project came up, is learning to say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I would love to do that, but I'm already doing XYZ. I can either do it when XYZ is done, or which one of these things would you like me to deprioritize and do this instead? It's using the language to say, I would love to do it all, but there are only 24 hours in a day, and none of us can do more work than is humanly possible. And so empowering people to have boundaries, which I don't love that word. It's a bit of a buzzword, but of just being clear about what you can and are willing to do, and where you might need support. Then, from the leadership perspective, I think I spend a lot of time teaching leaders how to not burn out their teams because leaders have to be very mindful about the workload that they're putting on their team. And I think a lot of leaders assume that their teams or their individuals or their top performers will say, "Hey, that's enough. I'm done," or I'm overworked or I'm overloaded. But the reality is nobody says that. And so if a leader is not tuned into the amount of work their teams are doing, often they will overload their plate and burn people out, which is a horrible business decision. Because if you burn out your top performers and you burn out your team, you're just going to have to hire more people to replace them. And then that costs the business. So I take it from the individual perspective and from the leadership perspective.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, were there any practices that surprised you in how effective they were?
Yeah, I think one that really surprised me that I love to do almost every day. It's a very, very simple thing. And I teach most of my clients to do this, is to just step outside and ground yourself. And what that looks like, I love this because anyone can do this, no matter what career you're in, no matter where you're located in the world, no matter what your socioeconomic or your salary is just standing outside in your bare feet and connecting with the ground. That is whether it's grass or dirt or whatever patch of natural earth that you have. And just taking a moment, taking a breath to let your, you know, nervous energy, your negative energy kind of, I imagine it just draining into the ground and then refilling yourself with whatever's around you, the air, the trees, the wildlife, sunshine, just kind of that grounding practice. I try to do it every day, even if it rains. I actually especially love it when it rains because I live in the Pacific Northwest and it rains a lot. And I sort of, imagine myself kind of being cleansed by the rain and taking all that energy out. It only takes a couple minutes and it actually makes you feel very good physically in your body.
Mm-hmm. That's so refreshing. Healing doesn't mean abandoning ambition, it means realigning what matters.
Totally agree.
Mhm. So, what role did energy healing play in your recovery journey?
Yeah, I feel like I sort of stumbled into it. I had an experience at an event where somebody um was talking about energy healing and took us through a meditation and I just experienced something that I couldn't explain. The person who did this, his name is Master Co. He's a He's a master pranic healer, and he taught us just how to feel the energy around our body and kind of move it from, one hand to the other and those type of things. And I was hooked from that experience of I need to learn more. Then I went down kind of the rabbit hole of energetic healing, ended up taking a bunch of classes and becoming a certified advanced pranic healer. I love it because I use it in so many ways beyond just healing others or healing myself. I use it in, preparation for conversations. I use it for, if I'm having a hard time or if I'm worried about something. It just taught me to be very mindful of just how I spend my energy and how I protect my energy in everyday life. So I'm a lifelong convert.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, for skeptics out there, what would you say to someone who's curious but unsure where to begin?
With energy healing or with burnout specifically?
Energy healing.
Energy healing. I would, I would be open to, however it crosses your paths. Um, I remember years ago working with an executive at a very well-known consulting company, and she had had an experience for the first time with a Reiki practitioner. Now, Reiki and pranic healing are different, but I consider them almost cousins. They come from different parts of the world. Reiki comes from Japan, pranic healing comes from Singapore, but uh, the the sentiment behind it is similar. It's an awareness that we are more than just our physical and mental bodies. So I would encourage anyone who's a skeptic to research a little bit and then trust your own experiments. Don't take my word for it. Maybe seek out a pranic healing clinic, or maybe seek out a Reiki experience, or something along those lines. Um, I very much believe that we will naturally gravitate towards, what is meant for us or what gives us energy. And it doesn't have to look one way or the other. So I would just encourage people to be open minded and try something. And if it fits, wonderful. And if it doesn't, keep your eye open for something else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love how you make it feel approachable. Sometimes the softest tools bring the strongest results.
Agree. I mean, I that's one of the things I think about when burnout. Most people think, oh, I can push through this. And it's not about pushing through the door. Sometimes when the door won't open, we can't push through. We have to realize we can step back and ease up and maybe pull, or we can take a step back. I also compare it to, driving a car, driving a manual stick shift, for example. A lot of us in our career will, start slowly, gear one, gear two, gear three, and then we're up and running and we're driving really fast. But if we don't learn how to shift gears in different points in our life, we're really stuck. And it's not healthy for a car to be stuck in a gear, and it's not healthy for us to be stuck in a gear.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So, you were juggling motherhood, marriage, and leadership. How did burnout affect your relationships? And how did healing shift them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think each one of them is hard. I don't recommend trying everything at once. There are seasons in life, right? There are seasons when motherhood is really hard in the early years. I think having a baby is one of the hardest and most rewarding things you can do. Um, Starting your career is really hard. You put in a lot of work and extra energy to prove yourself. So it's a little bit about timing. I like to say you can do everything, just not all at once, right? You need to be able to kind of stagger them out, just like seasons in the year. Summer follows spring, and after summer comes fall, and fall comes winter. So there are seasons in life, just like there are seasons in nature. And so it's a matter of recognizing what season you're in and not trying to push everything at once, because there's just not enough energy to go around. And counting on people to help you. I know, as a mother, I try to take care of everyone around me, and then there was nothing left for me. And then when there's nothing left for you when you're experiencing burnout, you're actually not able to take care of people the way you want to. And that's the hardest part. I actually didn't recognize how hard it was on my family until after I left corporate. And my husband said to me one night when we were chatting that he thought it was the best decision for our marriage that I ever made. And I was really surprised to hear him say that because he said, "You were just so focused and working hard and just burning the candle at both ends all the time." It's like you just weren't fully present. It's like, and when you finally decided to take care of yourself, you could give more of yourself. And I thought that was really profound.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So, what boundaries became non negotiable after that experience?
Yes. I mean, the one thing that I pay super close attention to is sleep. I feel like sleep is the bedrock to all of our health. Lots of things happen in our sleep. Our body regenerates, our brain, has a cleansing that goes on with our lymphatic system. And we just need that rest and recharge, right? Like a robot needs to recharge. We also need to recharge. And so my number one non-negotiable is sleep. I aim for, going to bed at the same time. Might sound boring, but when I have good sleep, I'm just more energetic, a better person. And so I'm very protective of that. And then the other one that is a major non-negotiable is paying attention to my energy of things that energize me, bring me value, things that I enjoy doing, and then things that really drain me, things that are hard because I don't like them or things like that. And that includes people hanging around with, people or doing business with certain people. I pay really good attention to what brings me energy and joy and what drains me. And I make sure that, I keep those in balance because I want to live an energetic life. I'm a much better mother, a better wife, a better coach, a better friend when I am living that way. And so I try to reduce the amount of, draining energy in my life, whether that's people or activities or things that aren't good for my physical health. So those are the two things: my sleep and just paying attention to energy.
Mm-hmm. That's such a powerful reframe. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's sacred.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And if someone listening right now is on the verge of burnout, what's one loving thing they can do for themselves today?
I think one of the most important things first is recognition, right? Recognition that you deserve to feel good. You are meant to feel good. A healthy body can do amazing things. And that if you aren't feeling good, that you have the right to figure out what's going on, and to take a step back. That working through things or pushing through or working harder isn't always the answer. I would encourage people to just take a breath, take a step back, and evaluate like what's working and what's not, and not to isolate. I find that in a lot of my clients, burnout is often accompanied by this feeling of shame, like we should be able to work harder, we should be able to do more, we should be able to run all the time and do everything all the time, and I think it's a misplaced thing. There is no shame in it. We are human beings after all, and so it's more about, seeking help, leaning on your community, and being able to say no to things when you need some time to recharge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what's your go to ritual for staying centered when life gets overwhelming again?
Yeah, great question. I have a few. I'm a big proponent of meditation. And if I different parts of my life or times in my life, I'll either follow a guided meditation or just sit quietly and do my own. I think, time to sit quietly and reflect and just give yourself some space is really, really important. So I try to meditate whenever I can, usually daily. It's not always possible. I pay attention to, the foods that I eat, the foods that nourish me and what makes me feel good and what does not make me feel good. And then the other one that I highly recommend is just connection with others, whether it's your partner, your children, your family, a good friend. One thing that I did not recognize in my corporate career is just how much camaraderie and socialization I got through just working in corporate, that when I left at first, I missed the interaction, but I realized I didn't nurture my friendships outside of work like I should have, and so they needed quite a bit of, nurturing and extra help. And now I'm very mindful to make sure that I pour into my relationships because I get so much back.
Mm-hmm. That's a balm for the soul. Healing is possible, and you just made that feel real.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely on the journey as well, just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yvonne, thank you for your vulnerability, your wisdom, and for providing that burnout doesn't have to be the end. It can be a rebirth. And to all our listeners, take a break, take a break, and take yourself seriously. Your peace matters. Until next time, choose rest, choose joy, and remember, your well being is the real flex.